Jesus' name, amen. So I recently read this New York Times article. The journalist Alex Stone wrote about the Houston airport. Has anybody ever flown through the Houston airport? Yes. So the Houston airport's kind of a big airport, lots going on, and they were getting lots of complaints about baggage claim and how long it took people to get their suitcases. Lots of complaints. So the executives got together, they hired this firm, and what they found out was if they would simply get more baggage workers, they could get the baggage out there faster, right? It seems like a simple solution. So they got it down to 8 minutes. 8 minutes on the average from the time you got off your plane until the time that the suitcases all arrived. That sounds good, right? 8 minutes sounds fast. Complaints did not go down. Complaints actually went up. Complaints went up. And they couldn't figure out what was happening. So the executives started studying this a little bit, and what they realized was it only took people about 1 minute to walk from their gate to the baggage claim. So they would walk from their gate to the baggage claim, and then they would stand there for 7 minutes waiting for their suitcases. So the executives got this crazy idea, what if we move the gates? So they moved the gates. It took people on average 10 minutes to walk to the baggage claim. When they got to the baggage claim, all their suitcases were there, and guess what? Complaints stopped. So instead of walking 1 minute, they walked 10 minutes, and then when they got to the suitcases, they were all there, and everybody was cheery and happy. It's this wonderful thing. And if we laugh and if we think this is crazy, in the same article, they interviewed MIT operations researcher Richard Larson, who said, this is a perfect example in the psychology of waiting. What Larson suggests is, it's not how much time you have to wait, it's what you do while you wait. It's not how much time you have to wait, it's what you do while you wait. He says, often the psychology of queuing is more important than the statistics of the wait itself. We will tolerate occupied time far better than unoccupied time. Do you think that's true in your life? As long as you're doing something, you can wait. Waiting's hard, right? But people say, right, what's the phrase? Good things come to those who wait. That sounds like a bunch of junk to me, right? It's good, just wait. Just wait. But we're in this season of waiting, right? The season that the church dubs Advent, which is a really fancy word for saying wait, prepare. Get yourself to Christmas. And it is really hard to wait for Christmas when it starts in October, right? It's really hard to wait when the preparations have already begun everywhere you go. In fact, I just spent so much time talking about how we're going to wait and prepare here at Restoration. We have Breakfast with Santa next week, and then the next week we have our worship expressions, and then the next week we're doing a Christmas thing, and then the next week we have Christmas Eve services, and then as we prepare to wait. Because remember, it's about how you spend the time as you wait. So we're in this season of waiting. I remember preparing as a child for Christmas. When we saw Miracle on 34th Street, we knew Christmas was coming. Right? When we watched White Christmas. Now, if you don't like those two movies, please don't tell me, right? Because I do. And those were movies that reminded me of my childhood, of waiting for Christmas. This year, I want to invite you to do something different, perhaps, than you've done before. I want to invite you to rediscover a childlike Christmas. I want to invite you to rediscover what it was like when you were a child. Children love Christmas, don't they? They love it because they get so excited about all the stuff that goes around it. And sometimes as adults, we can see Christmas as a hassle. All this stuff we have to do, these parties we have to go to, this decorating we have to do, these gifts we have to buy those people that we love. But what we're asking for in this season of waiting is to wait differently. To wait in a way that is perhaps different than you have before, in rediscovering Christmas. It's funny, I'm not very good at waiting. This year, Susan and I, Susan's my wife, we made a decision we're not going to get each other gifts. And that sounds really admirable, right? Like we're not getting gifts because this season is not about us, right? It's a time of preparing for Jesus, and we're not going to do gifts. And that may be why Susan agreed to it. But the truth is, I don't wait on getting the things that I want. Right? If there's something that I need, I can really justify a need real easily. If there's something that I need, I go get it. I make it happen. Right? The Black Friday sales don't matter to me. I've already gotten all my wants. I've done the things that I need. So this thing about me going, we don't need gifts this year, that's not because I'm such a holy good person. That's because I'm not very good at waiting. So for somebody to tell me good things come for those who wait and this is a season of waiting, that's just a hard thing for me. And friends, what I realize for some of you is sometimes the waiting is for the hard stuff. You're waiting in the midst of an outcome of something that you don't know what it's going to be. You're waiting for a relationship to be healed. You're waiting for someone in your family to be restored in relationship. You're waiting to get a job that you've been looking for 18 months. You're waiting for tomorrow to be a better day. And the waiting is hard. But remember what the article said in the beginning. The waiting is not as bad if something different is happening during it. It's about how you occupy your time during the waiting. So what do I want us to rediscover this week? Every week we're going to rediscover something different. I want to invite us to rediscover hope this week. You may find yourself this morning in a pretty hopeless position. You may look at our world, you may watch the news, you may listen to the radio, you may look at your neighbors, you may look in your own household and say, hope is not something that I have an abundance of right now. I want to invite you to try it on. I want to invite you to try to rediscover it as a child discovers Christmas. I want to look this morning at a group of people who have lost hope. Find ourselves in the book of Isaiah this morning. A group of people that used to live in Israel, that used to live in Jerusalem, that had their temple and they had their city and all was good until this group of people called the Babylonians come in. And the Babylonians not only take over their city, they destroy things and they kick them out. It's a season in history that's called the Babylonian exile. Exile is never a great phrase, right? The Babylonian exile. And it lasts for 50 plus years. Where people are out and they're in exile and they're hanging out and they've lost hope. And see, part of the challenge for these folks is, does anybody know where people at that time thought that God lived? In the temple. Well, if you're exiled from the temple, who else are you exiled from? God. So they feel very left out, and they're out here, and they're in exile, and they're way away, and someone is coming to tell them, Isaiah is coming to give them a word of hope this morning to say, hey, you're going home. You get to go back. And in this passage this morning, this is what he says. He says, do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary. And his understanding, no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary. They'll walk and not be faint. I want you to sit with this passage for just a second here. Sit with it, thinking about the context of people who haven't been home in a really long time. In fact, some of these people don't even know home, right? Hey, you're going home. You're going back. You're getting to go back to that place. The place where God is, but it's probably not going to look the same that it did before. Much of it's possibly destroyed. So they're in this season of waiting about going home, and it's incredibly uncertain. What's home going to be like? What if my house is still there? Wonder if my grandfather's house is still around. I used to have a store that was on that street. I was a vendor. Is my store still there? They're going home, but it's not the same home that they left. They're waiting to go home to an unknown land that was known. Do you feel like that at all in your life? You're stepping into something that you know, but it's incredibly uncertain. Maybe Thanksgiving felt like that for some of you, going back to be with family. Right? I'm going back to be with these people that I know, but I don't know what's happened in the last year in our lives. Things are broken, things are hard. There's a couple in our church this morning who experienced this idea of being separated from home, Susan and Felton Jones, who are back here. And Susan and Felton, you might have read a story in the Patch some time ago that their house burned down. They had a grill in the backyard that was going, and their house set on fire. And it burned their home down, and there's a picture of it right here. In Reston, right here in the community. And they lost a lot of stuff. And they went through a very long season where they were living in an extended stay place and where they were having the home rebuilt, and they weren't actually going to return to their home. They were going to sell their home, and they were going on this long trip across the U.S. But when they got back, at least when I talked to them, they thought that they were going to be coming home to Reston. Right? They were going to find their place back in this community that they loved, back in this community that they had connected with and spent years in and built relationships with. And they started searching for houses, and it is not as easy as it seems. It's really difficult to come back home. So up until a couple of weeks ago, they were searching for a house in Reston, and they kept not being able to get in on one, and finally they ended up, I think, going to a new community. Maybe. We think that's happening. But I want you to think about what that displacement is like in today's terms in their home. Right? The home that they once lived in is not the home that they were coming back to. The land, Reston, they may not return to. And that's hard. I want you to imagine thinking of that picture of the fire, losing everything that you had. See, like the Israelites, the Joneses just wanted to get home. And I wonder what your proverbial home is this morning. I wonder what your place is that you want to get back to, your thing, your situation, your experience that you hope to get home to. But here's the thing, as you wait, because remember I said it's about the waiting, Isaiah has a message this morning. Isaiah has a message for the Israelites, and I think Isaiah has a message for you, and that message is that the God of Israel is not hanging out in the temple somewhere. God is with you while you wait. God is with you in the midst of the waiting. God is with you in the midst of the challenge. God is not in the temple. The God that created order from chaos is with you and will not leave you. God doesn't get tired. God will give you strength. What is Isaiah calling the people to do? It sounds a little bit like he's chastising them, right? I don't think that's it at all. I think Isaiah is calling the people to have hope. Hope. Hope in the midst of waiting, and the reason that you can have hope is God is with you. Now, what does that look like? It's a really nice thing to say, right? Have hope. Right? That sounds like good things come to those who wait. Just have hope. Well, here's what I think it means. I think that hope is an acknowledgement that promise of our future is not dependent on the reality of our present. I'm going to say that again. Hope is an acknowledgement that promise of our future is not dependent on the reality of our present. Hope means your current circumstances do not define your future. Hope means that the God who longs for goodness, grace, and mercy is available to all people. It's a belief that the God who's been with you and will continue to be with you will work through you and will try to bring goodness in the midst of your reality. Hope is about God meeting you right where you are. And remember, it's about how you wait. It's not about the waiting. Having hope while you wait transforms the waiting. It transforms the moments as you wait. One person who studies this passage that we've read this morning says that the biblical witness of all time is that God hears the cries of God's people. And God walks with God's people. God wants to be with God's people even in the pain. The biblical witness is not that God takes away all the pain. Do you hear the difference? The biblical witness is that God will walk with you through it. God will journey with you through it. I was thinking this week, I think one of the things that distinguishes people who call themselves followers of Christ from others isn't that we're perfect. It isn't that we've got it all figured out. It isn't even that we're right on everything. Shockingly, I know. It's hope. The difference is hope in something beyond yourself. The difference is hope in something greater than yourself. The difference is hope in a God who loves you and will not leave you nor forsake you. The difference is hope in a God who's not hanging out in a temple somewhere, but a God who wants to be with you wherever you are. I was amazed in Isaiah's question when I reread it this week. Do you not know? Have you not heard? It sounds like chastising, right? Like, get it together. Don't you know? Have you not heard? And then I read it again, and I read it within the context of Isaiah trying to bring hope to the people. I don't think he's chastising them at all. I think it's sort of this rhetorical question to remind them that God is with them. It's not a beat down. Right? It's a, come on, y'all. Don't you know? Haven't you heard? God is with you. God longs to be with you. Isaiah wants to remind them that God is with them in the journey. God has always been with them, even in the midst of the 50 years of yuck, in the 50 years of mess, in the 50 years where they thought God was so distant because God was in a temple somewhere. How do we do this for ourselves? How do we gain hope? How do we pull on to it? One way, I think, is to actually, I know this is going to be a crazy thing, to read the biblical witness. To pick up a Bible, get an app, read through it. I saw somebody this week post, if you start today reading a chapter a day of the book of Luke, you'll get to the end. And it'll be really beautiful by Christmas. Right? You'll get to do that. And I think if you want to read a hopeful passage, follow the life of Jesus a little bit. Read the biblical witness. And some of you this morning, when I said the questions, do you not know, have you not heard, say, no, I don't know. I haven't heard. No one's told me. I have not experienced the fact that God is with me. And I don't want you to feel ostracized this morning. I want to invite you into a journey where I believe that God is journeying with you in the wait. Here's the second thing I want to encourage you to do. During this season of Advent, I want to encourage you to journal, to write. It doesn't have to be long, but to journal the moments where you are experiencing God in some way or form. To write it down, to acknowledge those moments, because I don't know about you, but I can find myself in moments of waiting and moments when I'm stressed, forgetting anything good. I can walk into my house and I can become, I've said this before, a little hyperbolic. This house has never been clean. See, I've forgotten. I go to make something. We never have avocados. These things sound ridiculous and you're laughing, but they happen in your life too, right? You forget. You forget. The beauty of having 4 other people in my house is they constantly remind me, Dad, the house has been cleaned before. Friends, we forget. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary. He journeys with you. Isaiah's goal for the people who have been in exile is for them to remember. So what's my hope for this Advent season for you. My hope is that you'll rediscover Christmas. And in the midst of it, you'll find hope. For me, when I pull out that first decoration, even though I know I have more to put out, it's in that very first one that I'm reminded of Christmas. When I think back to how much my grandmother loved Christmas, when I remember plays that we did in our church growing up for Christmas, when I remember the year my parents did a scavenger hunt and hid our gifts all over the house and gave us clues, I'm rediscovering Christmas. I have hope. Last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, I went into Target and I saw something. Let's see if we have a picture of it. I saw this. And we had one of these in my house growing up, and I did not care how much that thing cost. I was going to buy it. And I bought it and I brought it home, and I was so very excited to show my family. They were less excited about this gift. They didn't see the beauty and the rediscovery of Christmas that I saw in a ceramic Christmas tree by battery that lights up. That's the only problem, but by battery that lights up. But for me, it brought back all these memories. Reminded me of a time in my life when it was hard not to have hope, right as a child. Took me right back to that place. So what do I want for you this Christmas, this Advent season? I pray you find your tree. Whatever it is for you. Whatever your situation is, whatever thing you're longing for, whatever you're waiting for, I hope, even though the waiting might not slow down or get closer, I hope that you find hope in the midst of it. My prayer is that you find your tree. And I pray that your tree leads you to a place where even though the walk may be long, as you're on the walk, you're thinking about the destination that you want to get to, and you have hope in the journey.